Thanks for tuning in to our starting lineup edition, NASCAR Cup Series race number 4 for 2025. This is Phoenix, the Shriners Children's 500. And we're going to get underway here by going over what we do here on this show, and that is taking a look at the qualifying and practice speeds. Now, last week, for the road course, we had a really in-depth show. We went through a ton of different scenarios, and road courses can do that. We're not going to see much of that this week. So last week, I think the video might have been about 25 minutes, something like that. I suspect this could be a 10-minute video. There's not really a lot to go on. It's pretty plain and simple. Now, the other day, if you checked out our video, which we air every Wednesday normally with CJ Radoon from RotoWire, we kind of had the feeling that something like this would happen, that we weren't going to get anything earth-shattering. And the reason for that is that the last 3 winners for Phoenix in March or February, those first Phoenix races, that's all we're going on. We're not going to go on to later races because those are the championship races. They're completely set up different and they're ridden different. The last 3 winners were won by all 3 manufacturers, a Toyota, a Ford, and a Chevy. And lo and behold, that's exactly what we get for practice and qualifying today. Basically, we just don't get any assistance, anything that just sticks out and says, aha, you got to go in this direction. So you take a look here at the starting. Look at that. We got a Chevy, we got a Ford, and then we got a Toyota. All right. And then where's another Toyota? Not that far off, actually. There you go. You got 3 in a row. So in the top 11, okay, you have 5 Chevys, you have 2 Fords in the top 4, and you have 4 Toyotas. So there's just, again, I'm sorry, but this is going to be we said it the other day, it's a very tough race to handicap. And a lot's going to depend on what the odds are going to be, what you're going to get. We'll do our best to try to figure that out. And our marker, where we're going to kind of, our cutoff point is going to be at 13. And what we mean by that is in the last 9 races, no winner has won past the 13th starting position. Okay. So plus it's a 1-mile track. We haven't seen any 1-mile track so far. So we really don't have a whole lot to go on. If you want to take a look at last year, take a look at Richmond and New Hampshire. Okay, William Byron, as we see, is on the pole. But here's an important note. No pole sitter has won the race at Phoenix, okay, since 2015. As crazy as that sounds. So how about that? So no one since 2015. 7 of the winners in the last 9 have started in the top 10, though. And 4 of those were top 5. So again, that's why I said we want the cutoff point to be right about, I'm actually going to put it right about here. Okay. Now, it doesn't mean that you can't come from behind that cutoff point, because that's exactly what Christopher Bell did last week. Okay, he broke the trend last week. He wasn't fast in as far as the qualifying. He wasn't fast in practice. He was outside the trend line, and he broke it. He broke everything. So that could happen, but we don't go changing our trend philosophy or anything. We don't go chasing it. It happens and it happens. And you move on. Under the law of averages, they're going to tell us by the end of the year, they're going to hold up. So that's why we're going to go right back to it and say that. And you know what? I'm okay with that, because when you take a look at it, any of the drivers outside the top 14 aren't showing anything. None of the drivers outside the top 14 have either well, obviously we're talking about the starting lineup, but none of them have a top 10 practice run. The fastest outside the top 14, I believe, is Bubba Wallace 12th. And then Gibbs 13th. That's it. And as far as those outside ones, Kyle Larson's the one that probably sticks out the most, because he was 26th in practice. He was not fast at all. And when we handicapped the race earlier this week, we did not really go to Kyle Larson. Not because we didn't think that he's a good contender, because he always is. It's just that he's only led 13 laps in his last 3 visits to Phoenix. Again, we're talking about these types of races, not the championship races. And so even though he's been okay, 10 top 10s in his last 12, nothing's happened recently. And it just didn't feel like when you compared him to, say, Blaney, Bell, and Byron, that he would be the choice. So we've made out well so far in predicting that. Matter of fact, William Byron is CJ's top pick. He's in the poll. Maybe that's not good, but I'm sure it is. If you picked him, I'm sure it is. Okay, so Byron on the poll. And Bell, by the way, who was the favorite at 5-1 to start the week. He's sitting there not only in 11th starting lineup, but he was 9th in practice. That's solid. That's fine. Hey, he was a lot better than last week and he won. I know it's a road course. Okay, so what else sticks out? Well, when you take a look at the drivers, we just talked about the cutoff line for starting lineup. But what about practice? So if we look at the last 3 winners at this time of year for Phoenix, Byron actually won from the 20th with the 20th practice speed. Okay, this time around he's 6th. He was the third. He was third on the pole, third from the pole when he won. Here he's on the pole, so pretty similar, but much faster today in practice than he was even a couple of years ago when he won. Briscoe was 6th in both sessions. Bell was 13th when he started, 8th in practice. So not a whole lot to go on. If I want to include Chastain, because Chastain was in the championship race and he wasn't part of the championship. So if I want to just include him in that scenario, he was 8th and then 5th in practice. So if I do that with the last 4 in that scenario, what I do notice is the obvious. You have to be relatively fast here. You're not going to get more than likely a Christopher Bell, someone that for instance, you're not going to get someone like Kyle Busch starting 15th with a 21st practice speed. That's likely not going to happen. And understand that there are only a few of these drivers that we considered to be top contenders anyway, that were outside this line here. And that would have probably, Briscoe only stands out because he just won. And now he's on Truex's car, who almost won last year, but he's really slow in both sessions. Bowman has only had a really good go at it here once in his entire career. Gregson and Gibbs were a couple of long shots that I liked and CJ liked, but he, unfortunately, after a 16th place practice run, did not have it in qualifying, and it's going to start him way back. So I still would believe in Gregson as not a bad top 10 play, but to win the race now, I think we have to look to next week. Gibbs, look, he starts 13th in practice. That's okay. And then just a complete failure. He's got no confidence right now. So I just completely swung and missed on that one. There's no way, with the way that they've been struggling, that they're going to come from 34th and win this one. I think they would find it very much a success if they can somehow finish in the top 10 with this starting position. So really, Larson, the only clear driver outside the top 14 that it just, oh, wow, didn't expect that. So what do we do here with these 14? Well, I still believe in Austin Cindric. He was my long shot. He was 55-1. He's right here at the barrier. He was 4th in practice. Okay, so that's strong. And he's driving a Ford. Look, I said this why I picked him. I said, look, he's got Joey Logano and Ryan Blaney as his teammates. These 2 drivers have won championships here the last 2 years. How can Cindric not perform well here on this track, which, by the way, he has performed really well on when he was in the Xfinity Series? He was awesome at this track. So if he's going to take that next step, Cindric, this is the race he has to do it, especially with these 2 times. If he doesn't finish top 10, maybe even top 5 this week, I think he's got a problem. But I believe that number may drop a little bit, but I don't see any reason why it would drop dramatically from 55-1. So I still think he's a bargain. Buescher should be a bargain. I believe this was CJ's 2nd pick. And Buescher, very strangely, because Keselowski is awful here, and once again has shown no speed today. Buescher, though, in his last 3 visits, 9th, 2nd, 5th. So he's been solid here, and he's 22-1 to start the weekend, and I don't think those odds are going to change much because of his 13th position. But he was 5th fastest in practice, so I think Buescher, Cindric, those are also a couple of long shots that you're still going to get numbers on to keep an eye on. But the other long shots, the only other driver is that Carson Hocevar again. And we had this conversation for a few minutes, and I was trying to pick CJ's brain, and because we're trying to figure out, is there a way, a trend on Carson Hocevar? How can we get this kid? How can we figure out the best time to get him? See, what the problem is, though, is that while he's been good at qualifying, he's unable to sustain that for the long haul. But I think what it says is that if you still get these big numbers, like 90-1 or 70-1 or 80-1, go ahead and take them. Throw a buck on him every week. Why not? Because one of these weeks he might be able to spring a win. But now he's going to obviously drop from 90-1, maybe down to 30-1 or whatever, 25-1. So, all of that, the good graces of the odds are going to go on the wayside. Not only was he third fastest here, he was the fastest in practice. So the kid has done a great job. He's inevitably going to win at some point. And you know what? Maybe 25-1 if you fail to put a buck on him the other day may not be a bad idea as a long shot play. I think he's good as a long shot play, no question about it. If Cindric is and Buescher is, but just keep an eye on those odds because you don't want to get carried away. And I don't think he will get carried away. Other than that, I think the other long shots here in the top 10, Berry was real bad in practice. Elliott, not very good, only 20th. Haley, not very good, only 19th. And I'm just looking at some of these others here. But as far as the long shots, Berry, Jones, who was 8th in practice and 5th in qualifying, surprising. I don't know if I see anything here in Jones, though, where I'd say, hey, go ahead and take him now. Because those odds are going to drop in half, I would guess. They were 130-1. I just don't see anything with Jones here because he doesn't have like some sort of a history that says, well, maybe he can surprise. I don't know. I don't see it. I could be wrong. McDowell, second fastest in practice. So, but McDowell kind of do this. We've seen that before. He was 150-1. Once again, has not shown anything else here, even though McDowell and Hocevar were the top two in practice, and the odds were 90-1 and 150-1. I don't know. Realistically, if I'm looking at anyone in that top 10, I'm definitely looking at Byron. Based on what we've seen today, Byron, Logano, Reddick, Hamlin. Okay, so those are the four realistic ones. Bell, obviously, is going to be there. I think his odds are going to stay right around 5-1. Blaney, I don't think his odds are going to change much. Maybe you get an extra point. So Blaney may not be a bad idea still if he's 6-1, especially if he's 7-1. Don't think you're going to get that, though. Remember, he's never won on the racetrack. And then there's Cindric. So otherwise, I just don't think there's anything else for me to go on except to leave you with this. And that is that, and by the way, let me show you some more of these speeds. That is that this year has been crazy. Ford dominated the weekend at Daytona and Chevy won. Ford then dominated the weekend in Atlanta. Toyota won. Last week, Chevy dominated the weekend. Toyota won. So Chevy had the fastest driver in practice and the fastest driver in qualifying. Does that mean that the winner is going to be a Ford or a Toyota? Now, Ford hasn't won yet. So if we go by some of the silly deal there, maybe you want to look at Joey Logano, Ryan Blaney, Chris Buescher, Austin Cindric. Maybe. I don't know. Reddick, I think, is a good play because he was third fastest in practice and he was 12-1. So I think, and by the way, he led 68 laps in this race last year, which was tied for the most. He had a strong car, just didn't finish all that well, but he's still good here. And he was 12-1, meaning I think you could still, ninth is not all that great compared to the others. So I think you're going to get a good number on Reddick. I think Reddick could still be really good. I think Hamlin should also be good because he was similarly not bad, 10-1. Don't forget, he probably wins the race last year if he doesn't get in that wreck with Ross Chastain late. So I still think Reddick and Hamlin are going to get good numbers. Byron is going to probably be too low for me to say, oh, jump on him now. Same thing, I believe, with Logano. I think his odds are going to be a little bit too low. Don't forget, if you want our advice on some of these picks earlier in the week, then just check out our show on Wednesdays. We'll have a link in the description for it. You can also find out what Kevin Rogers thinks about it. We'll have a link in the description for his weekly videos, which come out every Friday. And we're going to have a link in the description for the DFS fantasy report by CJ Radun at RotoWire on the race as well. And that's going to do it. So again, I'm sorry I can't give you like some earth-shattering information here. All that I can say is again, if you want more in-depth coverage, you can check out our Wednesday show. Otherwise, I'm just not going to lie to you about it. I'm just telling you, it's a very tough race to handicap. There's just so many possibilities, so many different ways you can go. The best advice I was basically giving you is use the cutoff line at 14 and then eliminate some of those long shots, the more unrealistic ones, I believe, and keeping maybe just Hocevar, okay? And then also maybe taking Elliott out because he wasn't very fast in practice and hasn't exactly been great here lately, even though we think he'll have a good race this week. But I also think his odds will be a little bit too low. Look, hey, if you get better odds than I'm thinking with Elliott, then I think he would be a solid play. I just don't know whether or not you're going to get that. So take a look at the bargains this week. Take a look at the drivers that are 7-1 to 12-1, because any of them that we've talked about here that are in that top 14, I think are going to have a good chance to win. So maybe that's just the best way to go. No matter what the case is, we'll be back again next Wednesday for another race preview with CJ Radun. So check that out. Let us know what's on your mind. Give us your picks. Let us know what you think about the race. If you have a specific trend on your own that you think I haven't been thinking about, or some insight on the race that I haven't been thinking about from what you saw this day from the coverage on Amazon Prime. And best of luck out there. And I hope you win in your fantasy. I hope you win if you're throwing a few bucks on a driver of the week or a top 10. And we'll see you again next week. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share, and let us know what's on your mind. And we appreciate you checking us out here on Proline TV.